Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, blasts deadly conditions during Gaza aid site visit as hunger crisis happens. Democrats invoke rule to compel DOJ to hand over unredacted Epstein documents by mid-August. Immigration officer detained Maine police officer despite DHS previously approving his service. Global stocks sink after Trump's slapped sweeping tariffs on 90 plus nations, sparking trade fears. And the president urges Fed to cut rates or face a board takeover, fueling monetary police clash. And this is what I think a lot of the Democrats were referring to as far as the authoritarianism that the president is invoking all across the country. But nonetheless, we're going to have a discussion very briefly this morning about what's going on in this country and how we are affecting the world and a lot of the conflicts that are now happening. So Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who is an ambassador, as well as Mike Huckabee, toured Gaza aid sites amid growing hunger and reported aid zone deaths, even as Trump continues rejecting Palestinian statehood. Witkoff met Netanyahu and opposed Hamas, while international relief groups warned of starvation for Gaza's 2.1 million residents. Now, I never knew this up until probably about a month ago, that the Western world didn't recognize Palestine as a country, didn't recognize Palestine as a statehood. And this is kind of the reason why they have allowed the construction and the inception of Israel in 1948. Now, even though in that region, these people are calling themselves Palestinians, they have a flag, but they essentially, supposedly, do not have a government. And so even though Palestine exists, they're saying that it doesn't exist. So does that give them the right to treat these people in the manner in which they are? Because again, there's 2.1 million people that live in the Gaza region. Are all of them part of Hamas? No, they're not. They only say that the reports state that there's only maybe 15 to 20,000 Hamas terrorists that are still left. Now, of course, they could be hiding, within the regular people, within the assembly of the regular people. But nonetheless, all of these millions of people, the Palestinians in and outside the Gaza region, are not terrorists. Everyone is not a terrorist. These people are looking for aid. They're going through starvation, and their aid is being hindered, it's been slowed up. So President Trump has sent Steve Witkoff with an envoy to investigate this. Because in this particular scene here, what you guys are witnessing, they're called this the death trap, because hundreds of Palestinians, unfortunately, have been killed. Let me show you this. I'm just going to read this a little bit to you guys right here. It says that Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, has visited Gaza and been shown one of the controversial aid sites around which hundreds of Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces. Witkoff, the U.S. President's special envoy for the Middle East, had early met the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu amid mounting international horror over conditions of starvation in Gaza occurring after months of Israeli-imposed aid restrictions. The visit to the site in Rafah by Witkoff, a former real estate lawyer with no foreign policy or humanitarian background, who has also met Vladimir Putin on behalf of President Trump, was first reported by a number of Israeli media organizations. His visit comes as Human Rights Watchdog described the sites run by Israeli and U.S.-backed Gaza humanitarian foundations as death traps that had become the scene of regular bloodbath. And UN has said almost 900 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces that attempted to reach the site. We need to step in. United States of America sending a special envoy to investigate this. Steve Witkoff has no humanitarian, background of how to look at things through a different particular lens. He's a real estate lawyer. Now, of course, he can possibly get trained, but not in this record time. He needs someone who can really decipher and explain to him what's really going on. Someone who has a lot of experience. And believe it or not, We have a lot of military members who did humanitarian aid in Haiti during the earthquakes and the unrest that they have there. But we have specialists, we have professionals that can at least aid him in looking at things through a different lens. And the reason why I stated that America needs to step in, because we are part of the problem, ladies and gentlemen. By continuous backing of the Israeli state in the Palestinian region and giving this unwarranted support regardless of the actions of the IDF in that area, America needs to step in so the Gazians, the Palestinians that are there can at least receive adequate aid, because they said that, yeah, they relieved a little bit of the aid that has been coming in. They've relieved some of the aid that has been coming in, but it has not been enough. The aid has not been enough. It says that a staff member at the UN office for the coordination of humanitarian affairs in Gaza says that while Israel is now letting slightly more aid into the enclave, it is not nearly enough to even scratch the surface to meet the people's needs here on the ground. At least 7 people were killed and dozens injured while waiting for food supply near the Marah corridor south of Khan Yunis on Friday morning. That's what they're stating here, that, yeah, they've allowed a little more aid to come in, but it's not adequate enough. Now, I understand. Let me take a step back here. I understand the caution of the Israelis when it comes to hundreds of trucks of supplies and aid coming through. These trucks need to be inspected, for explosive devices, for biological warfare that could affect, the Israelis there as well as the Palestinians, because again, when you talk about biological warfare, everyone can get affected very quickly. Okay. It also need to check to see if there's any hidden weapons. Is there any weapon caches or hidden in the trucks or cleverly attached underneath or inside the walls of the trucks? Anything. They need to be inspected. That's why I believe America needs to step in, because maybe the IDF needs assistance so more resources can get to the people they're in need. Now, we just relieved 1,700 Marines and another 1,000 National Guard from California. And I'm not saying redeploy those guys, because believe me, when you go on guard duty forever and it becomes very mundane, you get very complacent, which they always tell you when you're deployed. Do not get complacent, but have other military units, Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, etc., even Coast Guard. They have a security force as well. Have them to go over there and inspect these trucks so the aid can start pouring in more rapidly, because there's starvation in the region. And we already have verifiable reports of people, especially children, who are not receiving the aid. Why is that? Because again, you would like to believe during a crisis that you would care about the children. The only people who are caring about those children are the parents. Because if you're just a single man, a single woman, or just a couple and you don't have any children, you're worried about yourselves. You're not, oh no, feed the kids first. No, you are starving as well. So the first thing that anyone in life has ever told you is always think about self-preservation. When you're on the airplane, now granted, these for people who do not have kids. You put on your own air. They even tell you this on the airplane. Put on your own air mask first, then put it on your child. Okay. But most people in our brain is, let's take care of the children first, then I'll take care of myself. So again, you have to think about when there's a crisis, and we're talking about starvation and people are trampling over each other. So that starts another crisis, right? Very unorganized. People are getting killed by the Israeli forces because maybe the Israeli forces don't know if they're friend or foe, maybe the aggressive nature of people. Because here's the thing, when you are hungry, starving, and I don't think a lot of us have actually been starving, because I've even given account of my personal relationship when it comes to this story, because again, my mom and I were homeless at one point in time for a week, and I didn't eat for 3 or 4 days. And when it comes to starving versus hungry, I was definitely hungry. I was not starving, because I lost weight, but I didn't. We're seeing skin and bones on a lot of these children, literally this skin and bones. No fat tissue, none whatsoever. And for one of the fattest countries in the world, we should definitely be behind people eating. Because again, you look at America, we're definitely one of the fattest countries in the world next to Samoa. Okay. So we don't have a lack of food. We may have an abundance of food. So again, sending Steve, Witkoff is a nice gesture. But I think that we need military forces over there, not to reinforce the Israeli Defense Force when it comes to their battle against Hamas. No, this is strictly a humanitarian effort. Believe me, I know Haiti, humanitarian effort. There was a lot of us on ground passing out water and food, keeping things in an orderly manner, and still have our M4s and our pistols on our hip, locked and loaded. So again, I'm thinking, especially the children. My wife knows when it comes to children, I hate when people abuse children. I hate when people take advantage of children. That's why I think I really want the Epstein files to be released, because again, it has nothing to do with the president, has nothing to do with the elites, has nothing to do with possibly, these powerful men. It has everything to do with the children. Because again, if children were harmed, if children was exploited and manipulated to do obscene things, whether it be sexual or non-sexual, then again, those people need to be prosecuted. Okay. That's what's important. That's what I definitely believe that's important. Now, talking about that, the Senate Democrats led by Chuck Schumer used a seldom evoked rule of 5 to demand unredacted Epstein documents from the DOJ by August 15, intensifying scrutiny on Trump era ties. So now that the Democrats are again rock solid on releasing these files, unredacted, we want to see the names. That's what this is about, folks. Because, in these files, they'll tell a great story, but they will have all the names redacted. If you look at, when I had my top secret clearance and you would have certain files and they will try to give it to you, you need another level of top secret clearance, TSCIS, all these different letters. I would even get some top secret files and be like, what is, well, you don't have that security clearance. Oh, okay. So I can just read the story, but I don't know who was involved. A lot of times they take away names and locations so you don't make any associations. I get it. I didn't have the clearance. Okay. I wasn't need to know. I just wanted to be aware of the situation. But again, they are invoking the rule of 5 so they can release these files. My only thing is, are these files going to be tampered with? Are they going to be edited? And if they are edited, can they tell they've been edited? Can they tell they've been tampered with? Can they tell that they changed things within the files? Can they replace names and put arbitrary, miscellaneous, unfactual, fictitious names in these files? Because again, the question that I raise are, who are in these files? Who are in these files? Now, I can tell you one thing, President Trump knows who's in these files. If Pam Bondi knows who's in these files, Pam Bondi, Attorney General, she knows who's in these files. Kash Patel, FBI Director, he knows who's in these files. And the president. But I wonder, again, people are just believing that this is political theater, that this is the distraction. What is this a distraction from? We have all these things going on in America, do we not? Don't we have all of these conflicts that we are supporting? Ukraine against Russia, Israel against Hamas. We're in cahoots. We're in support of all of these things, the tariff wars and the tariff trade wars, okay? It's August 1st here, folks. So again, there's a lot of things going on. We have a very intelligent, broad and large government that can handle a multitude of things at the same time. This is not a distraction. This is the American people, by the way of the Democrats and some GOP, wanting the Epstein files released. Now, the people who are against the Epstein files being released, who are non-governmental, right? They're not politicians. They're not lobbyists. They're not connected to the government anyway. Just regular old Americans. For those of you who are against these files, why? This is not political theater. This is not a distraction. And if you say it's a distraction, then what is it a distraction from? Because again, there's a lot of things going on here in America. There's a lot of things that we're supporting abroad. So again, I'm asking because maybe there's some information I'm not privy to, because I know how powerful, how intelligent, how broad our government is, and that we can do, because we do thousands of things at the same time. I'm just asking, what is the distraction from? Why don't you guys want these files released? Oh, well, we don't want the victims to relive this. No. The victims don't have to be revealed, but the perpetrators, the accused, can definitely be named. Oh, well, then if their names get into the public, then it's going to be in the court of public opinion. And you know how the court of public opinion is. They already did a mind map of people who were part of the island, all started to convict President Trump and others even before evidence has come out. Didn't they do that to P. Diddy? Oh. So the feds could not prove that P. Diddy, sex trafficked anyone. But they got him on prostitution and they still won't grant him bail. There's millions of men out here that has paid for prostitution. I'm talking about regular old school prostitution where women are walking the beat. Streetwalkers is what they used to call them, and used to pay them a miscellaneous amount of money to do sexual activity with you. Now they have OnlyFans, same difference. Now it went from the street to online. Let's meet in a hotel room. So all these people are conducting in prostitution in Nevada, in Las Vegas area, prostitution is legal. And also in other countries, prostitution is legal. They also stated that prostitution is one of the oldest professions in the world. Now, and again, if these women are not in a sex trafficking or sex trade and that they're doing this on their own will and own accord, then again, it's a profession that they are, voluntarily doing for monetary value. And a lot of people morally may be against that. But again, if that's their only skill or that's their only worth, then again, they're providing a living for themselves. I'm neutral about it. It's kind of like pro-life and pro-choice. I can make an argument for both sides. Now, some people are like, no, I'm pro-life because of X, Y, and Z, while some people are pro-choice because of 1, 2, and 3. It just depends on where you fall at. So again, as we look at this, just as well as many other figures have been convicted in the court of public opinion and before they even went to court, just as well as P. Diddy, release the Epstein files. Because again, there's only a certain amount of people who know who's in these files. All right. And I think the truth should be revealed. Now, ICE detained a Maine police officer claiming he was in the country unlawfully. His local department says DHS has cleared him to serve, raising questions about the coordination and immigration screening failures. And, behind this, folks, now the gentleman they're referring to, I believe, is Jamaican, a dark-skinned Jamaican. And the reason why I say, they're just showing this, the reason why I say a dark-skinned Jamaican, because did you know there's quite a bit of Asians in Jamaica? There's quite a bit of Asians, Indian as well as Chinese people are in Asia. Let me see if they have a picture of this gentleman here. You know what? Right here, I'm just going to show you who this gentleman is. Here's different pictures of him. They stated that he was in the country illegally because his visa expired. But the Maine police officer chief stated that we submitted all the proper paperwork and they approved him to work. So again, this could be a government oversight, things like that happen. A lot of government system, even in Fortune 500 and corporate businesses, their systems don't talk to one another. It goes from one system to another system. And when we look at this, as I was working for corporate America, you will have a system where you will get information from. You would then have to bundle that up. And I'm just kind of using terms that you may understand. Bundle that information up and put it into a file and then upload that SQL file into another system for that system to have the same information that system have. And they have to do that either, every morning or every afternoon before work ends. A lot of you guys know what I'm referring to. So even in government, a lot of our systems do not talk. I'm almost positive, that the systems that I'm referring to here, take for instance, if you work for immigration and then somebody else works from Homeland Security and another person works for the DC police and another person works for the FBI, all of those systems, okay, are siloed to one another. They may have some throughput where you can send certain data, certain information, but again, there needs, and I know we have a lot of national databases, but sometimes because of infiltration of cyber attacks, that's number one. Insider threats, okay, police officers or law enforcement who may be undercover working for the cartel. There's a lot of corruption because America is such a police state. We have so many police officer and law enforcement per capita. So when you have that much police, there's a certain amount of them that automatically will be corrupted. So take, for instance, all the government agencies that we have that deals with law enforcement. Now, I can't name them all, but I'll name a few for you. We have Homeland Security. We have CPP, okay? We also have CIA, FBI, DEA, the U.S. Marshal Service, and again, Capitol Police. We have, and then all the local police that you have. And look, what about even in Georgia, okay? And I'm just naming Georgia off the top of my head. They also have a GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, and a lot of other states have that too. Not only do you have local police, you have county police, then you have sheriff police, and then you have state police for that state. So again, we're talking about 4 or 5 levels of law enforcement for one state. And then we can't even get on the federal government, all the government agencies we have there. So again, there's going to be a level of corruption within law enforcement automatically. These are people who may be manipulated, could be tricked, okay? And their incentives are cash. Most of this is cash. Some of them can be insiders where they're just getting promoted to get more sensitive information to then relay that information to another body, whoever that may be. We've had reports of federal law enforcement agency giving information to the Chinese, okay, and even to the Russians. So again, just look these things up, folks, but believe me when I tell you that even with a lot of government oversight that these systems don't talk to one another, I don't think that they would have incarcerated this gentleman if his paperwork, one, was all in order, his visa was not expired. Because here's the thing. Everyone knows that government moves very, very slowly. So when they first submitted his paperwork, his visa was not expired. And whatever date they post-stamped on his original paperwork, whoever the administrators, whoever the clerks were, allowed that paperwork to pass through because it's prior to his visa expiration date. So it went all through the passing authorities and got approved. Simultaneously, his visa expired, and immigration did what immigration do. They come, detain, incarcerate, and deport. Now, supposedly he's still in the country, but nonetheless, that's just the way that the government works, unfortunately. We need more systems that are intertwined, that talk to one another, but we're going to need adequate security in order to stop infiltration of our government system. So I think this is a very complex situation where we're talking about systems talking to one another, connected to one another, so we can have that information. And this was probably got denied if his visa was not already extended. Now, markets worldwide plunged after President Trump imposed minimum tariffs of 10% on most countries and even higher rates on 92 nations, Canada at 35%, Syria at 41%, using emergency powers, and legal challenges are brewing. And this is something that the president stated he was going to do. He said, I believe at one of his town halls, that tariff is a beautiful word. Now, gas today it wasn't as high as I thought it would be. I thought gas in my area would at least be $3.50. I thought it would be $3.25, $3.55, but gas was $2.83. I was like, okay, that's not too bad considering about 2 weeks ago, gas was $2.58. So I was like, it's not a big jump because it was already increasing incrementally throughout this past 2 weeks or so. So $2.83 wasn't really that bad when we're talking about regular gas. So again, we really have to see how these tariffs are going to play out in the global market and how that's going to affect our bottom line here in America. That's number one. Then number two, he extended the tariff increase on Mexico for, I think, about 90 days. And I think a lot of these tariffs really don't take place until August 7th. So we might see the real effects by August 7th or beyond. So I'll keep you guys updated. So please tune in to Black Logic. Hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you're notified every time I release a video or go live. Now, Trump publicly pressured the Federal Reserve. And this is what the Democrats were referring to by authoritarianism, that he's just trying to take control as a president, as if we don't have a Congress and representative and we have no senators, that he just wants to do anything that he wants to do. But this is the threat he gave out. He said, if it doesn't lower interest rates, again, he pressured the Federal Reserve. He said, if it doesn't lower interest rates, the board should assume control. And believe me, this dramatic escalation is raising alarms about executive overreach into monetary policies. And the Fed, so far, they're steady. They haven't really made any move to call President Trump's bluff. And here's the thing, folks. This is something I can essentially get on board with President Trump. In my area, I think I've seen at least 5 or 6 houses for sale. People, want to change a venue, change the area. And believe it or not, the area in which I live, we're in the top 10 safest suburbs in America. The top 10 safest suburbs in America. Now, even with that being said, these houses cannot be sold because of the high interest rates. These houses, now the most recent house has probably been on the market for about a month, while the other houses have been on the market for around 6 months. And during the time between 2020 and 2022, you can keep a house on the market. And these houses were selling 100,000, 150,000 over market. So if people were listing their homes for 500,000, people from California, people from Washington State, people from New York were coming in this neighborhood and buying houses for $650,000. So people were making they were making $150,000 over asking price. Astronomical. I was like, why didn't I sell? Yeah, that been a pretty. And now the homes that are now still being built, now the homes that are now being sold are at least $650,000. Okay, they're at least $650,000. So I guess it's one of the same. But people are not trying to buy these homes at $650,000 at 5, 6, 7% interest. No, they want the rates to go back down to below 5%. Okay, they want the interest rate on home loans to go down less than 5%. As a matter of fact, let's see the national average of mortgage rates, if you guys don't mind. Okay, I know I'm kind of going off on a bent here, but I just want to see what the national rates are. Yeah, so again, I'm looking at the rates. People want these rates to go under 5% again. 30-year fix, we're talking about 6.72%. 15-year fix, roughly 6% as well. So again, they want these rates to go under 5% again because people are not able to sell their homes, let alone people are not willing to buy these homes. These are the national average of mortgage rates currently as of today. So as I stated, and I was just speaking off the cuff because last time I checked, these rates were still astronomically high. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You guys have a great and wonderful day. This is Black Lives.